News Talk 1340, KROC-AM. Good morning. I'm Andy Brownell. It's Rochester today on a Tuesday with Tom Ostrom. He's back, not on assignment. Good to see you, Tom.
Thanks. You too.
Wonderful morning. It's almost 50 out there already. So.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed your, whatever your assignment was.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, CIA subterfuge.
Okay.
Andrew, I must
sir.
say, even though Mary and I are devout Packer fans, we like the Vikes to win when they're not playing the Packers. And that last game to watch that they lost in the last, minute when they were ahead all the game, that was such a heartbreaker. I just couldn't believe it. And even I felt badly about it, and I'll bet you were demoralized. If you ever get demoralized.
I watched it happen, and I said, we're going to lose this game. You could just tell they're going to lose the game. I know there was a lot of factors and a lot of luck that went into the play for the for Buffalo, but at the same time, it was in the air. You just felt it. It was palpable that they're going to lose this game.
Huh.
And so I wasn't surprised. I just went, it's a nice day. Good thing I didn't spend the whole day watching it.
Boy.
Yeah, that's, kind of getting used to that, being a Minnesota Vikings fan.
Yeah.
We had a guy here in the building who is a Minnesota native who now has close in the household, lives in a Packer-dominated household, and he was finally converted over to Green Bay Packerdom recently. And I'm just like, no, you can't do that. You grew up in Wisconsin. I'm good with that. You're all good.
Yeah, but, well, it's just it was too bad. And the Packers are on fire.
Yes,
they look
are.
like a Super Bowl team if they keep this up.
Them and the Denver Broncos are just playing up a storm. Yeah.
Sports, boy, I can see why coaches get heart attacks.
From a Vikings fan point of view, it's so frustrating to watch that. You had Brett Favre, right? Mm-hmm. And you just more or less happened upon Brett Favre. He wasn't. Mm-hmm. He was drafted way down low. He was the diamond in the rough, as they would say. And the Packers were able to he carried the Packers for many, many years.
Yeah, he did.
With his some of his just unbelievable play.
Yep.
And then you think, okay, the Favre era is over.
And Rodgers studied under him for years.
And then you replace him with this guy.
Yeah, it is something. And
it is something.
Well, Mailbag, our friend Gary Drug, the appliance service guy, the old guy, as he says, on the air. Tom, he said, so we had one Ebola patient and then treated him. Now we got 2 new cases. When we treat them, will we get more for each infected person? Houston, we have a problem. And a couple other mailbags. George sent me a couple political cartoons. And after we get through this in our break, I'm going to talk about Ebola for a while, and briefly, though, and then get into foreign affairs and then domestic affairs if we can, and politics, and if not, we'll finish that up Friday. But here's the cartoon. It shows Obama, that famous Franklin Delano Roosevelt quote when the president said when the Depression happened, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. It shows Obama in a hazmat outfit, hazardous material outfit, with the hat on and the FDR cigarette sticking out of the mask. And he says, the CDC says we have nothing to fear but to fear itself. And then you remember that classic, this is another cartoon from George, where Obama keeps insisting that ISIS in the Middle East has nothing to do with Islam, even though they call themselves that. Right. It has nothing to do with Islam. Everything's workplace violence, evidently. Well, so here they've got him talking about Ebola and the cartoon, and he's standing behind the presidential podium, and there's a big sign, Ebola, bad pretty much, but it's a JV virus. And then Obama's saying, we're against Ebola. Let me be clear. We're not at war with viruses, though. The overwhelming majority of viruses are peaceful. So
that one is actually pretty funny. I like that one.
That's the mailbag.
All right, it's 49 in the downtown, 15 past 10 o'clock here at KROC-AM. By the way, Roscoe's Root Beer and Ribs on 4th Street Southeast is still open. And actually, the weather's darn nice, and it is now Customer Appreciation Days at Roscoe's 4th Street location. That means 25% off every single thing on the menu. And it's a great way to show how much Roscoe's and the crew appreciates all the loyal customers. And that was a great time to taste some real barbecue treats. As Tom, you put it on, it can be even barbecued turkey. You got the barbecued ribs, you got the barbecued chicken, you got the wonderful pulled pork. All of it's 25% off. Everything on the menu.
Yeah, real barbecue. The best burgers, the hot dogs, the great sides, the baked beans. And they've got an indoor area, too. If it starts to rain on you a little bit, you don't forget that. 25% off for Customer Appreciation Day at the 4th Street Southeast location.
Until they close up for the season. And don't forget, you can always go to the North location. They're open all year round up by Shopko North. It's 20 minutes past 10 o'clock. I'm Andy Brownell with none other than Tom Ostrom. On a Tuesday morning, 282-1234 is the number. And, Tom, I guess you want to start out with Ebola.
Well, again, anytime President Obama and most Democrats say the Republicans who have a stand or a statement or a perspective, they're just being political. Well, first, that's what politicians do. Secondly, if Democrats say that, you can imagine that they're doing whatever they accuse the Republicans of, and they're invariably political, especially this president. Well, who does he appoint as an Ebola Czar? A guy named Ron Klain, who was a staff member on the staff of Joe Biden and Al Gore in their respective careers. He's the guy that gave money to Solyndra. That was his brilliant idea, and it went down the drain. He's the messenger guy. He's the message guy. He's the propaganda guy. He also was a speech coach for Democrat candidates. So Obama puts him in charge of Ebola. He's the Ebola Czar. What's that to do? It's to spin everything. It's to see that all the people involved are on board politically and say the right things and don't say the wrong things. And it's to protect Obama from any malfeasance that is done in the case. And the National Institute of Health chief admits that it was inadequate Ebola protocols and overstated readiness. But I don't understand that appointment. It's an insult. It is stupid. It makes no sense. Plus, Andy, we have an Ebola Czar. There's a doctor named Nicole Lurie, and she is the head of infectious diseases, contaminations, and responses in the Health and Human Services Department. She's disappeared. Reporters can't find her. Nobody can find her. Why isn't she there? Is that a war on women? Why this political hack? I don't understand it. And I think he's got the optics wrong, Obama, but he's very politically shrewd, too. I don't understand it.
I think you do understand. I think you stated it quite well. I think that there was an appointment that was a purely political appointment because at this point you're dealing with a complete disaster as far as the Democrats are concerned in the run-up to the elections next month. This is your October surprise, and it's not a surprise that's going to play out well for them. Regardless of what does happen with the U.S. response to Ebola, it's already a public relations failure for this White House. It's probably going to play out exactly like we were talking about previously last week, you and I differing on this. I'm still not losing any sleep over this. But the revelations that we hear about Texas Presbyterian Hospital and their lack of preparation and how they were caught off guard and obviously did not have the support of the CDC, at least on a very timely basis, is extraordinarily disappointing. That you would think that after all these years of hearing from experts that someday this is going to arrive on our shores. Someday there will be an outbreak in Africa, and somebody will get on a plane, and they will bring this virus to the United States. And you know what? We're going to be ready for it because we have these protocols in place. So when it finally does happen, with lots of warning as well, you have to add that to the mix. This has been going on since April in West Africa. This problem has been growing, and they have had plenty of time to get all of these medical centers up to speed, have the nursing staff and doctors and other staff trained, be ready, and they completely blew it. And it's beyond the initial diagnosis blowing it. It's where the care was taking place, getting rid of the infectious waste. It's every step of the way they're going to come through an investigation and find how badly botched this was. Thankfully, it appears the harm will be relatively mild. And I'm always saying the word relatively because in human terms, when you have even two people who have become infected after treating the man, there's a price that is going to be paid for that. But at the same time, it is
It
is a political disaster for the White House.
It is, and then one nurse went to Ohio and back on a plane, and then they had to take apart a Frontier Airlines plane because of it. And the CDC director said, A, you can't get it by sitting on a bus next to a person with Ebola, but Ebola patients shouldn't get on a bus because he can give it to passengers. Well, I'm trying to diagram that sentence, too. And then we got troops overseas. They're not going to even get hazmat suits as they do their work, and they're going to be handling or transporting fluids. And now the U.S. military, Posse Comitatus Act, the U.S. military can't be involved in domestic law enforcement or politics. But the Pentagon is saying, our Secretary of Defense says it, we're going to start a response team of military people to respond to American cases, and they're going to start sending any possible patients to certain strategic centers that are able to cope with this. But it's so sad. These nurses got it, and they were wearing protective gear.
Well, not enough protective gear, apparently.
Well, I think it's how they put it on and take it off, too.
That might be. Well, but they're also now changing the protocol to make it head to toe.
Sure, and I still think they say it isn't airborne, but then if you ask somebody if an Ebola patient sneezes and gets it on you, you can get it. Well, that's airborne.
Yeah,
Sneeze.
Okay, but once again, I'm going to try to. I wish a day after we talked last time, an infectious disease expert was on with Tracy McRae, one of the top guys in the country who's over at the Mayo Clinic. And you have to put things into relative odds, right?
Yeah.
The odds of that happening are extraordinarily slim. Extraordinarily. Is it possible? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it likely? No. Is it even remotely likely? Probably not. Everything in life has risk. At any moment, you could cross the street and be hit by a bus. If you look both ways and are careful, is it likely? No. But is it still possible? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how these experts have to answer these questions, because they can't give you the black and white.
That's right.
No, it's not.
And that stuff can modify. Viruses can modify. And nurses are very frightened. The head of the nurses' unions they're very frightened, these young, brave nurses and other healthcare practitioners that have to respond. So for some, the risk is high, depending on the profession. For others, you're right, it's slight. It's still scary.
I'll give you the scary part, but I think also the media has played a role in getting folks frightened beyond the level of fear that they need to have. I watched a report this past weekend from a Fox TV guy. He was a local guy. I don't know which station, Houston, Texas, or Galveston. I'm sorry, it was Galveston, because it was this cruise ship that came back, where there, again, if you used a rational level of concern, your odds of falling off that ship and drowning were probably a lot more than your odds of this lab worker contaminating somebody and getting Ebola. But the ship was turned away from a Mexican port, which was a complete overreaction. Yeah. But they come back, and this guy standing on the shore used every sensational cliche you could think of as he was reporting about this. And it was, if you were a person who did not look into and do some research about the disease, and you watched this, I'd be putting up plastic sheets around my house trying to protect myself. And I can understand where people have this fear, because part of this is the way this is being reported by some of these. I hate to say it, part of it is because it drives profit. You get people riled up, and they'll watch your program, and then you get your viewership up, and everything is driven by that. The guy, what's his name for Fox? He's on in the afternoon. Is it Sawyer?
Shepard Smith?
Shepard Smith. That's what I'm thinking of. He, over the weekend, sat down, and I don't know what prompted it, but it was a breath of fresh air. He, over 5 minutes, tried to lay this out in a rational, non-sensational way, and tried to explain the risk to the general public. And I thought he did a really good job.
He did, but government, I mean, I'm sure he did. You saw it and said it, but remember, people don't trust their government. You got all the scandals that we've talked about on this show. And the role of government is to make us compliant, make us do what they say we should do, have faith in their knowledge, and tone us down so we don't react against government. That's why they got this spin controller as the Ebola Czar. And so from that history, we can be suspicious of bureaucracy, bureaucrats, and government. because there are a lot of unknowns in this. And like Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld said, the dangerous thing is if we know we don't know, that's one thing. But if we don't know what we don't know, that's something else. And you got a little of that here as well as overreaction. Okay. But underreaction will get people dead.
And I will share with you my healthy skepticism of government bureaucracy. I agree that, and everybody, and that's why America is supposed to work the way it's worked. We're all supposed to be a little bit skeptical,
including the media.
And we're all supposed to try to be as educated as possible about the issues facing us. Mm-hmm. And I feel that, well, you and I agree about a lot of things here. But what ticks me off is when I see a reporter or a media organization running this thing and creating a boogeyman and scaring people needlessly beyond the level they need to be concerned. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And that ticks me off.
Yeah. But I'd like to see a doctor saying these things and not the president, who is supremely political.
Yeah, and there have been plenty of doctors who have been willing to say these things. Yeah. Unfortunately, the media has not used them very much because, you know what, it doesn't drive up ratings. When you have a guy
but on Fox, you had Sean Hannity have a whole room full of medical people, of nurse practitioners, physicians, epidemiologists, virologists, physicians of various kinds, and psychiatrists. And they got in a hassle over definitions, levels of danger, and what they know and don't know. It was fascinating.
Okay. We got to take a break for news, but we're going to do one quick call. Good morning. You're on KROC.
Good morning.
Hi.
I was pulling in the program, so I didn't catch it. Did you guys talk about movies yet?
No.
Contagion, my favorite movie.
Oh, go ahead.
Have you seen it?
No.
That one I haven't seen. I've seen quite a bit of them.
It has Minnesota in it.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I did see this one.
Yes, with the CDC and the pandemic, and 8 million people die in the United States alone.
And that was the pandemic flu, right?
It was a pandemic flu with the bat and pig interchangeable virus.
I did see that show.
Hello, virus. There you go.
Wow.
So if you see that movie, it's like, well, this is happening now.
Except for that was an airborne.
You are correct.
So there's a huge difference.
But it was mutating at the end.
It was a very scary movie, I agree.
Mutating at the end, wow.
Hey, if you want to lay awake at night, watch the movie.
You have a good day.
Thanks for the call. I have a bad habit of watching those kind of movies, the outbreaks and the contagions, and I don't know why I do, because they do. They'll keep me awake at night.
You love science fiction.
It's 50 in the downtown, Thomas, and our friends at Carol's Cup and Carol's Corn in the subway level of the Kaler Grand Hotel. You know what? Some Chicago mixed popcorn can go a long way towards easing your Ebola fears. It just relaxes you. Just sit down and you can pick through the carameled corn, and you can pick up as many cheese-flavored ones as you want and get to the white ones, whatever. It's just delicious. Carol's Cup and Carol's Corn, subway level, Kaler Grand Hotel.
And the gang is so much fun to deal with. They're alert, and they're customer-friendly and funny and one-liners, and the customers are that way, too. And I'm drinking Seattle's best coffee now that I got from there this morning, and I went in and watched Jana and Red and others, and the customers of guys that work in maintenance and other things at the Kaler and for the clinic are outside delivering one-liners. Pat wasn't there, so they had to take his place. And, oh, gosh, they're making the corn of all types, and then the confectionaries and the sundries, and the yogurts of various flavors down the hall a bit, including the yogurt stand at Apache Mall. It's just a fun place to be, and the smell. The choices are difficult to make because there's so many.
They're so good as well. Carol's Cup, Carol's Corn, subway level, Kaler Grand Hotel. Carol's Cup as well with the frozen yogurt at Apache Mall. KROC-AM, it's 22 before 11. A beautiful Tuesday morning. I'm Andy Brownell with Tom Ostrom. It's Rochester today, and 282-1234 is our phone number if you'd like to join in the conversation. What do you want to tackle next?
Well, President Obama, he just doesn't like the press. Some of the White House press corps are saying, doggone it, we don't like the censorship and we don't like the intimidation that's going on when we try to cover things. And now there are rumors, New York Times is talking about it, and the Wall Street Journal, that the president is trying to get a multi-nation agreement with Iran that doesn't have to go through the Congress, because he doesn't want to vote on Iran's nuclear program and sanctions and relieving the sanctions, but he wants to relieve the sanctions. That's a campaign issue, too, before the election. So some people are saying he's gearing up to get a multinational agreement to relieve Iran of the sanctions and let them continue their nuclear program with their promises. Israel's outraged about it because it's a surrender, his critics say, that doesn't have to be ratified.
Because it's not a
by
treaty.
The Senate.
It's not a treaty.
He's calling it a non-treaty.
Yeah.
You'd think it would be, but he's calling it a multinational agreement.
Congress could negate it by approving sanctions. I don't know. Obviously there has to be a check here.
Yeah.
But the check would probably have to require positive action by Congress. And that's not going to happen until the whole election.
No, and other rumors are that he's going to go around the Congress on amnesty, and whether he does it before the election or after, that he's asking the bureaucratic entities that are involved with this, State Department and the Department of Homeland Security, to begin to issue millions of cards, work permit cards.
Start printing them up.
To start printing them up to give to illegal immigrants.
And that's based upon what they call requests for, they're requesting bids is what they're doing. They're going out in the marketplace and seeking companies to submit bids for the work at this point. Which is
as they did with the children that came over the border, and they secretly got a hold of transportation companies and say, give us bids and get these children all over the country.
Well, they have to publish the bids, so they can only be so secret, but somebody has to go search through these.
I bet it'll be after the election.
Process. Well, obviously, I think it's going to be after the election. Yeah. There's no way they'd step into that one. But going back to the Iran thing, how much of this do you think might be related to the whole ISIS situation and finding a way to perhaps gain some additional cooperation from the Iranians, which is going to be a very tricky thing because you're going to tick off both the Israelis and the Saudis at the same time.
Right. And we got to cooperate with Syria. We're invading their territory with bombing, and Iran doesn't want ISIS either, so sure, they're going to be dealing with that. And now the Turks have backed off a little bit. The Turkish government, and they're Turks, not Arabs. They speak Turkic, not Arab, but they're Muslim. They don't like the Kurds, even though the Kurds are the only ones that seem to be able to fight ISIS, because the Kurds, they say, are a terrorist group or some elements of it. But now the Turks have backed off. The United States did launch a good bombing campaign, and they have those cargo planes dropping material to the Kurds, and that's fine. But I hope a cargo plane, whether Navy or Air Force or Army or Air Force, I hope it doesn't get shot down. Then we got prisoners of war under ISIS control. But we are stepping up a little. So the Turks looked at that, and now they're saying we'll let the Kurds go over our border back and forth and go into Syria to fight ISIS because the Turks are concerned. But it's just whether there's progress or not. They're, 10 miles outside of Baghdad now, the ISIS folks. People say, well, they can't conquer Baghdad, but... they're fighting.
That comes across as one of those famous last words type statement.
You don't want to put Andy,
that out there.
President Obama won't admit he's dealing with Islamic extremists. He just won't use the word Islamic. And now the Pentagon finally came up with a word. See, the Pentagon has to have names for these operations so they can have ribbons and medals and part of the history, like Operation Desert Storm. Now they come up with one, nothing about Islam. This war against ISIS, which isn't a war, they say, is called Inherent Resolve. Operation Inherent Resolve. Jeez. Isn't that something?
That's actually hilarious.
Yeah.
Inherent.
Yeah.
It's inherent.
Inherent Resolve.
Okay, well, no, that's terrible. Oh, my gosh. I read an interesting piece. I wish was it Times? I can't remember. But it was about in Denmark, Tom. And you're going to find this interesting, I think. Denmark is trying a new strategy, and I think it's probably not the wisest strategy, but they're trying it. They had this radical mosque, and Denmark has long had this open doors policy towards whatever radicalism, I guess,
and migrant workers,
but yes, so they've had a number of these people who were mainly young men from divorced families of moderate Islam moderate Muslim immigrants, there we go, who were recruited by both ISIS and other Islamic fighting groups in Syria and traveled overseas. And now some of them are coming back. And unlike other European countries or perhaps even the United States, Denmark has tried a different strategy of welcoming them back when they come in. And they've actually working with this mosque. And this mosque is not toning down its radical rhetoric at all. It's still calling for a caliphate and in the Middle East. And it won't disown its support or distance itself from ISIS. But at the same time, the leaders of the mosque have agreed to try to cut down on the number of young people who are joining up with these terrorist groups fighting overseas. And when they're coming back, they are cooperating with the Danish authorities to try to evaluate the risk level of these recruited immigrants, trying to find a better way to describe them, to try to figure out a way to assimilate them back into society. And it was just really interesting because they talked to some of the fighters and talked to people who were just horrified that this is the way their country was dealing with this issue, and talked to the people who were supportive of it within the government, who were trying to take this as a pragmatic approach to dealing with it, because this way at least they know who these people are and can monitor them and try to figure out which ones are the real danger and which ones weren't. But they actually interviewed one of these fighters, and his take was just it was mind-boggling in a lot of ways, because the rationalizations that this young man was trying to use were interesting, to say the very least. Like, ISIS isn't all bad. It would be statements like that oh yeah, we worked alongside with ISIS, and they're not all bad. There's some good in there as well. And well, I'm not for the beheadings. That's probably not a good thing. But I'm all for the caliphate and everything that goes with that. And it was, to hear this from probably like a 21-year-old man's point of view, as after he had left his homeland, which was his childhood home, to go off and fight in this war, and now he's coming back to his parents. And it just is, you go, wow, what a weird state of affairs that you have there.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
You have kids here who run off and become meth heads and disappoint their parents, and that part, and that group of people. And it's happening in Minneapolis. You have young people rebelling against their parents and going off to join terrorist groups.
Oh, sure. And in Scandinavia, what they should do is take these people, and they can't waterboard them, but feed them or make them smell lutefisk. That would break them down real fast. But, I just think Britain is not...
I'm not laughing. I'm trying not to laugh.
Britain is not going to let these kinds of people back in. But our FBI says that we have to let them in. Now, FBI is not part of the State Department, but they're saying that. We don't have any borders. We can't refuse to have our Americans come back from ISIS. We can't evidently utilize our border sovereignty and keep them out. We can't keep out people from the southern border. We don't have borders. Troops are off defending other people's borders, but we don't have any borders. But it's... you wonder. And then the FBI has been told, don't monitor, or New York City police, or these mosques too. You got to watch it. You can't be shadowing them. You can't infiltrate them. We're not supposed to do anything to offend people, but we got to defend ourselves.
282-1234. Would you have something else you wanted?
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. You're on KROC.
Good morning. Before I go to what I called about, it sort of sounds like the Roman Empire, which you guys are just ending up on. They couldn't maintain their borders, and they began to have problems from within. They didn't know who was Roman and who was not. But the reason I called was something that I haven't seen in the media, but I think it's sort of striking. First of all, I learned yesterday that apparently Mr. Walz, who is supposed to be our representative elected by us, working for us, and who never can be found locally, is simultaneously helping run the campaigns of 6 other people running for Congress. Perhaps you all have already discussed that.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, well, that's something that I wonder what's going on. So he's helping 6 other people, run for Congress, all the way from Connecticut to California.
I think his polling numbers show that his seat is pretty safe.
Well, whatever it is, it's funny. It's really peculiar how people view who's supposed to be representing them and never says anything about it. But the other thing that I wanted to call about was an ad that he just started running. Most of this call is about deceit. You see one thing, but you get something else. And the first comment explains it somewhat. The second comment I wanted to make was, lately I'm hearing him on television saying he's Johnny on the spot checking into the VA. There's one small problem. He sits on the VA subcommittee, the subcommittee for the VA. And he's been on there for several years. And by the way, the problems with getting people in, access, signing up, manipulating stuff, it has been well known in the VA system. I'm a physician. I used to be a consultant in the VA a number of years ago. Way back then, it was known and complained about. So he is sitting on the committee, the subcommittee, that is supposed to oversee the VA system. That doesn't, there's no way, I just can't imagine he would not know anything about it, but all of a sudden his commercials say, well, I'm going to get on top of this, and there's something in the commercial about the paper. We're going to probe it. So, he has not been doing his job. It's just that simple.
I think there's a lot of folks out there who would agree with your assessment of that, and I would hope...
But it's the truth. I wouldn't call. I don't tell things that are not true. I'm too busy.
The one thing I would advise everybody, please do not base your vote on anything you see in a television ad. Please. All across the board. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. Either way.
I would agree with that. And if I was ever associated with anybody's ad, if it's not damn well true, I am not, and I'd call them out.
All right.
This is not true.
I've got to take...
He missed the boat, and he's covering up.
Okay.
Well, thanks for the information, and the media should press him on that when he does appear.
Well, the truth is, the caller's correct about that as well. He has an ability not to appear. Mm-hmm. And during the last election cycle, I made repeated attempts to try to get a congressman to do a segment of the show, and I'm not going to... It's more an opportunity for him to have his say than anything else. But I couldn't even get a phone call returned. I couldn't get an email response. I couldn't get anything.
A lot of politicians, often Democrats, are not anxious to be answering reporters' tough questions like the kind the caller raised. And, of course, Republicans answer, but usually ineptly.
No, it's part of the game. Everybody
Republicans are so afraid of being hated or criticized, they don't pursue anything, and Democrats don't want to pursue anything now before the election.
It's part of a strategy for re-election. Mm-hmm. Congressman Walz should be laying low because it's not to his advantage to go out there. Right. It just isn't. It's to the challenger's advantage to call him out and try to get him into as many debates as possible, but it's to Congressman Walz's disadvantage to do that because all at this point you're going to see is criticism. Mm-hmm. And I understand it completely why they're laying low. I would do the same thing. It is, especially in the current political climate of our country, where if the district wasn't the district it is, it would probably be in play, but it's not in play. I don't think it is. It is 50 in the downtown of KROC-AM. Victoria's Restaurante and Wine Bar. They're on First Avenue Southwest in downtown Rochester. And they are also ready to cater your event, whether it be a holiday party, which are, again, approaching very quickly, a wedding, an office event, a birthday party, you name it. Victoria's can help you out. They have the pasta bar. They have the delicious bread. They have the salads. They have the staff. Just give them a ring. They'll take care of you at Victoria's.
And they've got Victoria's Express across the hall from the main restaurant, and you can get pizza by the slice and rolls and salads and other good stuff, the entrees and the pastas. And you go into the main restaurant, and a marvelous, wonderful, friendly staff will tell you the appetizers and the salads and the pastas with the chicken and meatballs that you can get, or the whole wheat pasta, and the various things that go with it, and the salads, and the desserts, and a great wine selection at Victoria's.
Victoria's Wolf. 3 minutes away from 11 o'clock. I'm Andy Brownell with my friend Tom Ostrom on a Tuesday morning. And, Tom, you've got a few minutes here. What do you got for the last segment
I'm going to
show?
say foreign affairs. There's a conspiracy theory now about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, weapons of mass destruction that have been discovered since troops were there. I knew about the yellow cake that was discovered, and the Pentagon dismissed it, and they gave it to Canada, and Canada took it back for their nuclear energy programs. But the New York Times is on this, plus that's a left-wing newspaper, plus the Washington Times and Wall Street Journal. Conspiracy theories about cover-ups of the WMDs. Karl Rove's at the bottom of the cover-ups. I believe that because he's after the Tea Party. Karl Rove never helped Bush defend himself, and Bush won't do it. But I haven't got time to get into that.
Okay.
I ran off a New York Times series on it, 51 pages, and I'm going to cover other things next time.
Okay.
And what do we have left now? I'll cover one more topic.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, the war on religion. I've long thought that the wall of separation is being breached by government and in the Obama administration, and they put pressure on the Catholic Church to not adhere to its philosophies and threatening them, and the IRS is threatening pastors and priests who speak what they call politics. But a lot of the social issues are moral issues in the church and the traditional values, and pastors are being told not to say anything or they'll lose their... That's controlling religion. And now a Houston mayor who's gay has asked pastors to turn over their sermons about traditional values and statements about gays and statements about her because she's gay. And Alan Dershowitz, a Harvard law professor who's a liberal and who favors gay rights, says these subpoenas violate every element of the Constitution and the separation of church and state going the other way, and it's dangerous. But it shows there's a war on religion, and it's coming from the left, and it comes from the government.
And, I read about this, and I cannot believe that somebody who is in the legal profession has not sat down with this mayor and said, by the way, you can't do this. This will go to court, and you will lose. It's called the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It's one of the most basic rights that we have in this country. And I understand that you've had this crop up in Colorado. We've had this crop up in a couple other states, and this is probably the most blatant example of it, that people who are elected officials in this country do not even have a rudimentary understanding of constitutional rights.
No. And the left does crush conservative thought, conservative speakers, conservative commencement speakers. They say they're tolerant, but, boy, they want to crush the opposition.
Yeah, but there's a difference between not inviting somebody to speak at a college and actually trying to pressure a person who is a minister or other clergy into handing over the notes on their sermons, because that is called the chilling effect.
There's a difference, but it's suppressing opposition views in both cases.
All right, Tom, we'll see you Friday.
Yes.